What's up, everybody? Yes, indeed, I am back, man. First and foremost, before I say anything further, I have to tip my hat to all the homies from every Maravilla because back in the day, going through that county was no joke for them. You know what I mean? It was called survival, baby. It is what it is. And I was living during those times. I participated in that movement. Okay, so like I said, once again, I tip my hat to all the homies from Maravilla that went through that era. It was no joke. I'm gonna speak a little bit today about that because Mr. Lucky Steve from Maravilla had spoke on it, and I'm gonna give my side of the story. Okay, so first and foremost, people, let's not forget, this is a fitness channel with a twist. Today I'm gonna speak a little bit about heart health, very important, because a lot of people are neglecting their health, and man, this is a number one cause of people being removed from this earth. Okay, so anyways, with that being said, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, put your notification bell on all, and share this channel. Now, before I get to the twist, like I said, I have to speak a little bit about fitness and nutrition. We're going to talk about heart health. Keep in mind, people, with the rise in heart-related issues like heart attacks and cardiac arrest, it's more important than ever to focus on heart health, people. Now, cholesterol plays a significant role in this, as it can reveal a lot about your heart's condition. That's why keeping your LDL levels, the bad cholesterol, in check is crucial. It can quietly increase the risk of heart diseases, while medications and balanced diet, regular exercise, and quality sleep can also contribute to better heart health. Incorporate some natural remedies can also make a difference. One such remedy is ginger. Okay, ginger is a staple spice that we often use in cooking. But it's fascinating to realize that this single spice can do so much more than just, add flavor to your foods. It can actually help soothe the cold, boost heart health, even reduce inflammation. One of the most studied benefits of ginger is its ability to support heart health, particularly by helping to clear plaque from the arteries. It does this by lowering your LDL levels, people, which is often referred to as bad cholesterol. High levels of LDL are linked to a greater risk of heart disease and stroke. Now, chronic inflammation in the body can harm blood vessels and lead to high cholesterol. Okay. Fortunately, ginger is packed with powerful anti-inflammatory compounds known as gingerous, and I forget how you pronounce this word. Can't even think. I think it's called stogos or something like that. Which work to reduce inflammation in the arteries, people. By easing inflammation, ginger may help lower LDL cholesterol and protect heart health over time, people. Ginger is rich in antioxidants, which help neutralize free radicals and reduce the risk of LDL oxidation. Now, there was a study published in the National Library of Medicine that explored ginger's effects on lipid levels and found that it's indeed has cholesterol lowering properties. So just some food for thought, people. You know what I mean? Because that disease is the number one thing that's taking people out nowadays. You know what I mean? The cholesterol, the LDL, the low dense one. Okay. So now with that being said, man, if you guys want to get started in your fitness journey, hit me up, highpowerfitness.net, or you could actually go to my Instagram. It's highpowerfitness, high_power_fitness_. Now, let's get to the twist, people, because this is a fitness channel with the twist. In today's twist, I'm going to elaborate a little bit on what Mr. Lucky had spoken about the taxation of Maravilla. He spoke of an individual that was speaking on his, not directly towards his video, but to the whole Maravilla area. And I'm not going to mention that individual's name for my personal reasons. But yeah. I lived during that time that Lucky spoke on. And like I said, I tip my hat to all of the homies from Maravilla. And I've spoken in the past about a certain individual, my boy. He was from Lopez. I'm not going to put his name out here. He's, like I said, I've heard he's Christian now. Now that individual would announce his arrival wherever he was. And he would get the blues, and he would give the homies the blues. That fool had hands on him, man. I hope one day maybe he might see one of these videos and he reaches out to me. We go way back, man. We did a lot of time in the county together. And, you know, yes, you guys are probably thinking, hey, well, didn't they have the green light? Absolutely. You know what I mean? But trust and believe, there was a lot. It was a wild, wild west for the homies from Maravilla, okay? I know there's a lot of speculation, and Lucky had Lucky had mentioned that individual said that they PC'd up. No, they did not PC up. There was a Maravilla module, there was a gang module, there was the blood, the cripos. Everyone had their module, okay? From what I've seen, and from what I've encountered with and participated in, a lot of homies that were going through the processing would get caught right there. And once they would get caught, because it was obvious where they were from and they had a green light on them, they would snatch them up and send them where they need to be sent. Now, were there them few that may have went through the system and didn't really have the clecha? It might have, you know, I'm just going to give you an example. They might have been youngsters and didn't know the reglas, and they didn't so much say that they needed to be locked up. I doubt if they said that. Who knows? You know, maybe there might have been a couple that might have mentioned it when they were going through processing, because they will ask you certain things, and, you know, we're not supposed to help in any way for law enforcement. That way they place us where they need to place us. That's their job. You know what I mean? That's not our job. We're supposed to, you know, don't know nothing, didn't see nothing, didn't hear nothing. Yeah, there might have been them couple youngsters that might have said exactly where they were and went straight to the Maravilla module, but they didn't know any better. Was it a PC move? In some people's eyes, they may have thought it was, but it's not. And it's kind of like, I'm going to give you an example. When you hit the state and you're going through, you know, R&R, and they're going to ask you a bunch of questions. They're going to ask you who you run with, get whoop, and you know, hey, you tell them who you run with and where you come from, and they already know. But technically, that would be a low-key a PC move. That way, they don't house you with your enemiga. You see what I'm saying? But not everybody is laced up, and not everybody is seasoned to that level. So, once again, I support everything that Mr. Lucky spoke on. He hit the nail on the head. Why? Because he lived it. That other individual was making moves from a place where he was, like Lucky may have said, he was probably already in the process of going out backwards. You know, a lot of times people could speculate from a far distance, but they really don't know how the system is ran. Only the people that are running it at that time know what's going on. And like I said, During my time going through that system, when the homies had that verde on them, they caught the blues. And when they caught the blues, I mean, they caught the blues everywhere they went. They weren't hiding. They did what they did. You know, come on, it's a no-brainer. It was a war that they weren't going to win. But were they putting in work? Absolutely. Because any chance that they had to try to get one of us, they're going to get off first. Because it's like I said, it's a no-brainer. They would get smashed. There was more of us than them. And when they went through the system, it wasn't a group of them. It was one here, one there. You know what I mean? And when they got caught and they got. You know what I mean? They got the blues. And then they got shipped to the Maravilla module. Now, let me give you guys an example here for those of you that don't really understand. Now you got 1750. It's considered high power. Yeah, there's some very, how should I say? There's some individuals that were housed up there that were very, had a very strong voice. But then there was also them other individuals that were piece of shits. You see the difference here, you know what I mean? You can't label that whole thing as being that, because, you know, it just doesn't work that way. And the Maravilla car had their own module. And from my understanding, this day, well, I don't know this day of age, but a while back, even the motorcycle clubs had their own module. Why? Because it's a no-brainer. If you put them out there in the main line, and especially if they had a green light on, they're going to get smashed on. And what happens with this, it creates a lot of lawsuits against the jail, against law enforcement. They're not trying to get sued. You know what I mean? Especially them knowing that you belong to a certain organization and they put you in harm's way. You know, like I said, it was a no-brainer. But as far as that being a PC module, absolutely not. You know what I mean? We had our module too. We were dressed up in the Joker suits. For those of you that know, you know. For those of you that don't know, it's not necessary to know. You know what I mean? It's here nor there. It's irrelevant. I don't even think they have those modules anymore nowadays. And Lucky had also mentioned a part in his story where he was catching the chain, and that a homie from Poland said that the light had been lifted. When I was going through the system during the time and they had that verde on them, it was my understanding that verde didn't carry on to the joint. It was only down there in the county jail. So, you know, there's a little difference. That's the only difference that I had to say. A difference of opinion, what Mr. Lucky said and what I was told. You know, he may be right and I may be right. You know what I mean? Like I've said, because I remember the homies that stood there, and that one particular individual, my boy from Lopez, would not bounce. He's staying there. And keep in mind, the homies that did get the blues, they didn't bounce. They just got caught. They got snatched up and they got sent to the Maravilla module. Okay, so don't try to twist shit up here, people. None of them PC'd up. And like I said, if there were the individuals that spoke at the beginning of processing, that's because they weren't seasoned. You know, they thought it was the thing to do. You know, everybody makes mistakes like that. I've seen it even going through the CDC when you go through processing. Individuals forfeit information that they shouldn't. They assist the law enforcement with doing their job. That's not your job. That's their job. Let them figure it out. You know, write it out like a real one does. So anyways, people, I'm going to bring this video to an end because it could get really touchy. And real quick, that taxation part. Now, I don't know where people seem to not understand. The reason they had that verde on them is because to some people they were going against the grain. If you were a person from Maravilla, you weren't going against the grain. You were going with what you believed. And they stood their ground. And they had that verde on them for years. And once again, I tip my hat to them. Taxation? No. That was one of the reasons why they had that verde put on them. They refused. They weren't going to stand for that. You know, like I've said in the past, and I'm going to tell you guys today, man, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind them walls that I never agreed with. But I'm only me, and I will never go against the grain. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? The majority rules. Well, anyways, people, like I said, with that part right there, it wasn't a PC module. It was a place that they placed them to avoid further conflict and harm to them. Now, with that being said, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Put your notification bell on all. Share this channel. Once we reach that 10,000 mark, ooh-wee, baby, we're going to start going live. And my motherfucking YouTube yarda will become activo. Now, if you want to get started in your fitness journey, you already know what time it is. Hit me up, highpowerfitness.net, or shoot me a DM, highpowerfitness, high_power_fitness_. Now get up and get yours. Let's do this.